My name is Sunder Ganglani. I am directing the Assemblywomen. I also work as the artistic director of Cornerstone Theater Company. And I also worked on the adaptation that we're doing of the Assemblywomen here at Cal State Long Beach. So working with Kate on the adaptation was really interesting. We went into the process with recordings from conversations we'd had with students here at Cal State Long Beach and the original play, which is comprised of 5 discrete scenes. And so we went about working through doing a scene-to-scene adaptation of the play, which was really fun in the end. And you'll see if you come to the show that the ending is still inscrutable. It's difficult to end. It's difficult to tell the fortune of the future, or reverse the ending, the problematic ending that Aristophanes actually wrote to begin with. Greek theater is devoid of what we might call psychological realism. There's no subtext in Greek characters. They're often stand-ins for ideas or symbols. Oftentimes they're very cartoonish. They're flat. We would think of them as flat characters. They're mouthpieces for ideas very often. And so we went about adapting very, very in the same way. Like, how do we acknowledge and honor the form, take advantage of the ways in which the characters are kind of cartoonish in their actions, and then infuse the adaptation with different kinds of contemporary idiosyncrasies. So between the scenes, and sometimes inside the scenes themselves, there are these eruptions of contemporary reference, contemporary political circumstances, and direct address to the audience that make appeals in all kinds of interesting ways that speak to this audience directly as students at Cal State Long Beach. So almost all of the adaptation was written intentionally for this space and for the students who will be in the audience. And so that was fun, and that's also difficult in its own way, and it takes a deep conversation, which we've had in the process, about the circumstances of being a young person right now under a system of power that is divisive in a world that is run by different forms of corporate gain and greed, in a world where the classes are far, far, far away from each other, where it's difficult to put gas in your car, let alone show up for life. How do we make a play that speaks to this predicament of continuing to believe in being alive, having fun, being a joyful person, and spending time in community, which is what the theater offers us. In adapting the play, the original text, we wanted to disrupt the gender binary that puts men on one side and women on the other, and think instead about what masculine and feminine expressions actually are, and how the feminine is often under siege wherever it's found, be that in whatever body it's found in. So to think less about the gender binary and think more about a kind of non-binary understanding of gender. An ongoing conversation, since we started having conversations last semester with a small group of students, many of whom are in the production, is what is queerness? What is a queer future? How do we define it on our own terms? How has it been defined for us? Does it have anything to do with gender? Or does it actually have to do with a kind of otherness, a kind of peripheral status, a peripheral subjectivity, a presence, a quiet presence, a mysterious presence? What does it mean to be a queer person? Is it definable? Is part of the political subject identified as queer, identified as such because you can't locate them? And is that one of the imperatives of being queer, so that you can't be taken advantage of by various forms of power? All of this plays a part in how we're thinking about queerness as a moving target, as something that might express itself in one energetic place and then another. One of the questions that Kate and I had going into this process was, what does it mean to make a piece of queer theater? Not necessarily a piece of theater about queerness. What is a process that we would say is queer in some way or another? And one of the things that we spoke a lot about was, there's something queer about sharing power, about being in relation to other people as equals. And we wanted to adapt a script and create a script and offer a script that leaves room for the people who are going to perform it to kind of inscribe themselves into it, to write themselves into it, to have if not a voice, a kind of embodied presence that Kate and I couldn't have conceived of. And so the play has these there's options. There's different kinds of options for how the play is performed that depend on the cast that's performing it and what they believe is appropriate or what they want to communicate. So there's different endings, and at the time of this filming, we're still not exactly sure how the play will end. You know, there are pieces of the play that are unwritten so far. There's new texts or proposals for texts coming in the day after tomorrow on behalf of a group of students who are going off and writing it and making a proposal for what's needed. And there's still this kind of open question about how we end this piece. How do we land without answering anything too definitively? How do we land how do we land solidly with the integrity of our questions, instead of kind of limit ourselves to one answer over another that also feels like a queer practice of let's fill the room with questions. Let's fill the room with conversation. Let's fill the room with discourse and joyful conflict and effort. I have a bunch of favorite moments in the show so far, but it's tough to peel back. There's a moment that has quickly become very powerful that a lot of people are responding to, where somebody asks for a favor to be done on their behalf in the audience. And what results is a very profound and beautiful exchange. That's a beautiful moment. I don't want to give it away because I know people who are going to see this in advance of seeing the show. I also love this. There's a moment called the Song for the Liberation of Athens, which is which day after day and rehearsal after rehearsal becomes deeper and deeper and richer. It's basically an improvised experience on behalf of the whole company. They're working with a score and a series of gestures, but it's a very beautiful offering.